Hi, and welcome to our new Luxembourg PE&VC Stories episode of 2022. We are very happy to host today Laurianne Delaunay and Adrian Pawelec from Marguerite. All the best to you and welcome.
Thank you to having, and thank you very much to having us here today, this new year. So happy New Year to you too.
Yeah, happy New Year to everybody, and delighted to be here.
A pleasure. So let's directly start. What can you tell us about Marguerite? Who, when, and how did that adventure start?
So when? 2010, over 12 years ago, by who? Nicholas Marigot, the current CEO of the company, who basically came first and hired everybody else. I joined early. I was one of the very few to join in 2010, and been with Marguerite happy ever since. Laurianne joined a few years later.
Yeah.
As well. And yeah, who we are an infrastructure fund manager, managing a couple of funds out of Luxembourg. That's why we're here, right?
Absolutely. And what can you tell us a bit more about your main activity and philosophy of the group? And any specific deals you would like to highlight or mention?
Well, we're doing sustainable infrastructure. So it comes to digitalization, renewables, energy renewables, transportation. So that's the key areas that we are investing in. For example, one of the last deal we did was the energy. It's in France and is a solar plant producer and storage developer. And young team, innovative, like full of energy. And it's not only like a pure and renewable energy, but it's more than that. So that's the future really in this area. So that deal really struck me. It's like, wow, I like this one specifically. At least it's one of our favorites for the moment. We'll see in the future.
Well, I have a couple of others favorite, but I agree. This one is quite unique, merging not only generation, but also storage. Long term, if you look at the market, in electricity, renewable, storage has been the challenge. What our investment will offer is a solution, targeting consumers and looking for a new sector in France, in the market, and then trying to accommodate the needs that we all as a society need.
Sounds really great and inspiring. What can you tell us about Marguerite, the group? Where are your main offices and how many persons do work for the group?
That's an obvious question. Main office is Luxembourg, obviously. With the other office, we have office in Paris as well. The senior management team is based in Luxembourg, and we have junior support staff based in Paris as well, supporting us on the transactions. The fund structure is based in Luxembourg again. We as you can guess, we do enjoy that setup, and the fund structures are based out of Luxembourg here.
Since, this is a very strong office here in Luxembourg, you mentioned the funds are here. What is the global operating model here in Luxembourg? What is also the composition of your team? What kind of experts are working here in Luxembourg?
Well, here we've got senior management, as Adrian just mentioned. We've got because we've got the AFM here, we've got very much all the people working for the AFM, portfolio manager, asset manager, risk and compliance people. So really, it's all the key, I would say, decisions really are made from Luxembourg, in Luxembourg. So that's the key players. That's who we are structured really here. So the deal team is more based in Paris. I guess it was historically. But we already have some deal people located in Luxembourg. Unusual, but we're happy with that. So yeah.
That's great news to hear. That's also always a question in general. Would it make sense to have more front office persons in Luxembourg, including also investor relations and fundraising activities? What do you think?
Well, in our case, given the background and that we started the funds in Luxembourg, actually we operate out of Luxembourg. This has always been the case. With the senior management present, people responsible for the fundraising are actually based in Luxembourg as well. So I think that was pretty strong start for Marguerite in general. Obviously, you need to accommodate where the investors are based and locate, and that's another thing, and we're happy to see Luxembourg actually growing on that area as well.
Any detail you would like to add on your investors, typical investors who follow you on the market?
One of the things, I mean, you know more, you've been from the beginning, but what's it's important is like we have the historical investors are still with us, so they're still willing to continue the adventure with us wherever we go. Well, so it's for us is a positive sign that what we're doing is good, and yeah.
Yeah, we still have the same investor base, which we appreciate and thank them very much for that as well. And you know, we target institutional investors, obviously, interested in this type of asset, infrastructure asset, which has certain characteristics, as Laurianne mentioned, sustainable investment, as such in certain categories, transport, energy infrastructure, digital as well. Those are the things that appeal and attractive by the nature of the assets that they bring to those investors, which I guess links also to you know, to the several parameters of the investor, who are they after, and how the market is changing as well, which is not only about, you know, investment as such, but also what kind of portfolio managers bring.
You mentioned sustainable investments. Can you share more details concerning your ESG policy and strategy? How advanced are you?
Well, again, I think our background, you know, going back 2010, we had at that time already our co-investors were development banks, and given that background, we've been always very much in forefront of ESG as such, long before that word became that popular as it is right now. So yes, it has been always part of our investment process to take into account those aspects, look at a sort of greater perspective. And again, I think it's also important, given that for infrastructure, the timeline for investment is typically longer. We're talking about investments that with a lifetime of 10 years or so. Lots of them are greenfield as well, so it's important to take into account that, you know, that asset needs to be constructed and put in place, ramp-up period, you know, and we leave with the people, there are other people as well who will be part of that venture to succeed as well. So yes, we do very much agree it's an important thing, and that's very much in line with the philosophy of Marguerite.
The name of our first fund had climate change in it, so it's been like more than 10 years. So it's not like we have been waiting for regulations to implement ESG really policy or procedures. So it's part of who we are really, and that's what we're happy with.
Yeah, so robust pioneers on that element for sure.
Yeah, I think it's well, we're not the only one, but yeah, definitely part of the first ones for sure.
You mentioned the Luxembourgish AFM, the funds here. What can you tell us about the ecosystem, the infrastructure? Anything we could upgrade?
Well, I mean, we're very happy. We've been many years in Luxembourg, so, and with no intention to change. So very happy, and then we've grown with Luxembourg ecosystem infrastructure. I mean, I've been in Luxembourg for many years, and I can tell that such a big difference from even 10 years ago. So really, there's a development, and people, associations really are eager to develop, which is great. I think we should definitely continue doing that, because there's definitely impact, like visible impact. The good thing is Luxembourg is in the middle of Europe. It's very well connected with all the EU regulation, and then like European associations as well. So it's like a really good networking. So we can tell that we are well aware what decisions that are taken on more like international level, and this is implemented here. Good location in the center of Europe. So even if traveling may be just a bit more difficult now, it's still, you know, we're still able to travel in various countries. So it's also important. And we've got experts in various fields, which I think is really key to develop our business, whether it's like any type of service providers, whether it's like lawyers, whether it's like advisors, whether it's just like, well, auditors understanding the process as well, management and compliance. There's a lot of key people who understand the industry, because it's what we are doing mostly in Luxembourg, and that is really important. Yeah, and that makes things successful, really. So,
I mean, from personal perspective, really, I have like 20 years of experience working with or for, that sort of infrastructure fund or private equity fund, and you can easily tell how much the sector and regulations in general have evolved over that period. And it's true. That's true for every market. I think for us, Luxembourg, the fact that after 12 years we're still here means that's the best evidence that we actually like it. And we see Luxembourg evolving along, sector and a part of the European Union, and also with all the benefits that come with it, access to the market and everything else, but also flexibility to move elsewhere. We still very much appreciate Luxembourg with all those aspects that Laurianne just mentioned: access to talent, access to even legal infrastructure, which for me as a lawyer responsible structuring certain things is important, and I always appreciate Luxembourg for that. And the support, advisory, and also the quality of life at the end of the day for the people who actually decide to move to Luxembourg is a combination of various factors. So yeah, I very much agree with Laurianne.
Very happy to hear that you find all you need in Luxembourg, and also concerning the talents, which sometimes some other players and practitioners might have more difficulties, but it might then probably depend on the profiles.
We are always looking for new talents anyway. So of course we wouldn't. We could be more happier to have more talents and experts and had to retain people in Luxembourg for sure. So we won't disagree with other. But so far we've been kind of lucky to get stability in the people we work with, and experts we are relying on. So.
Well, look, bottom line, you can always steal from a service provider. That's why how Laurianne joined us.
True.
And now more on a personal basis. How did you enter the private equity infrastructure field, and how did you start your career?
Well, I first came to Luxembourg for the international environment as an intern, and then I came back afterwards. Said, well, it's not that bad after all. And actually, I studied private equity in the US. I was working in the US. Private equity wasn't that much developed yet in Luxembourg. But after a few years in the US, I came back. And this is where really private equity, infrastructure, real estate popped up. And I continued that field. And I kind of gave up on the UCIT side to focus more on alternatives.
And what did you initially study?
Finance.
Finance, okay.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I'm a lawyer, profession. Used to work for many years for American law firms based in Warsaw at the time. Some of those clients, actually, I work for, one of them recommended me to Nicholas Marigo, the current boss. And we had a chat. And he mentioned that there is this new fund he wants to create and launch. And I thought, well, sounds interesting. So I'm here after 12 years, and I do not regret at all. So that started for me, and yeah, it has been, frankly, for Luxembourg, was a coincidence. I got a job offer. I said, well, Luxembourg, I tend to work with people from Luxembourg quite often, but frankly, never been to Luxembourg before. There was no reason, the way we look at it at that time. So I said, well, you know what? Let's agree that I will spend a year there, and after that, I want to have an option to move elsewhere. But after a year, I didn't want to move.
That's the classical conclusion. Once you have tasted Luxembourg, usually you stay.
Yeah, I think, yes. It's very much personal, situation as well, and the family relationship, and overall the quality of life and balance. For those who need to travel, you can travel, from a bigger airport where there's more crowd and traffic. Or you travel from a smaller airport and then you need to take a connection flight. So that's a choice at the end of the day. But with with COVID and all the stuff, it's certainly fortunately, at least on that aspect, less often. So yeah, I do very much. Yeah, that's my short story, really, short version of it.
And what's the piece of advice you would like to share with young talents who would like to do a career in private equity, venture capital, or infrastructure?
Good one. I would say take ownership of your project. I would say put all you got to make it happen, And work is much more than just a checklist. You just have to tick the box and that's it. And then the other day, I think if you put all you have in your project, it's much more interesting. It makes life a bit happier in the sense that you're happy to achieve something, to teamwork and everything. So ownership, I think, is the key word I would suggest to talent, young talents.
I think pick what you like to do, what you enjoy doing, and do it right way. So you contribute. People will appreciate the way you contribute. And if you contribute, if you do that extra mile and help somebody else, that somebody else will remember and will see you as a part of the team and will be glad and looking towards working with you on the next deal. And that will help you as well to grow yourself, get that experience, and start eventually, it will pay off.
Strong values, engagement, conviction, passion. Yeah, that's a good formula.
Make it as happy as well. So it's
why not sharing it, your achievements? Yeah,
completely, sure. And did any specific person or leader inspire you in your career or also life?
I don't know if you have one in specific, Adrian.
No, I mean it's many. You interact with people. I think in my area, which is more law and that's deals and structures and everything else. But at the end of the day, you interact with people, not with legal text alone. And it's important to sort of be open-minded towards various people, the way they approach. There is no single way that's the correct one, especially in Europe, the way we look at different cultures, even within the Europe, not to go outside of Europe, which gets it even more complicated. But you sort of over the time learn sort of, okay, maybe step back, have a look. Maybe what that other person is saying for a reason. And maybe some of that you can actually get to a conclusion that works for you as well. So for me, inspiration, it's more about looking at other people, saying how they contribute, how they bring what we have in common, and then how we learn from each other. That's the really interaction. And if you work in an organization, whether it's a fund or something else, you will be working with people. And so I think also being modest as a part of that, it's also an inspiration. I think I'll say that.
No, I fully agree with you. I don't have one person specifically, but I'm more inspired by everybody. What some people are like unknown people are doing in their everyday life. I think that's more inspiring than just looking at one specific name and trying to mimic the person, because everybody's anyway different. So we'll do things differently. But it's more like small things every day that you can read about. That really is more inspiring.
Completely makes sense, for sure. Let's then finish our interview with any favorite book, series, podcast you would like to share with our audience.
See, there's one good thing that's COVID and we say fewer flights that brings that over summer I had to travel back to Luxembourg 12 hours to check instead of a 2 hours trip. So I had few connection flights, a few time to read, and then within 12 hours I've just read a very good book, which is When the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owers. Very inspiring book, because I didn't know at that time it was actually a bestseller, I think, in the US. And I wouldn't be surprised that it would be a movie in a few years about that. But it's nothing about business or nothing about or everyday life. It's just about nature, about surviving, about discovering who we are, how we can find ourselves without anyone, but still with the help of someone at the end. So it's completely a bubble of nature, of happiness, of fears. That's, it's you feel like you're completely away for at least 12 hours when you read the book. So I definitely recommend it. I think it's, I loved it. So good thing of being stuck in the airports that you had time to read more. So
there is at least one thing we differ when it comes to reading preference, right? I like history more. So to me, reading history is what I enjoy. Lots of books like Anthony Beaver, they are pretty good and very immersed, and I do that. But also, I think I discovered YouTube during COVID times, actually during bad weather. Because, one thing of the being properly Luxembourg is not just the citizenship or owning apartment or a house here, but also whether you like a bike. That's a national Luxembourgish way of living. But it rains. So on that occasion, I discovered YouTube and lots of, broadcasting of channels about the cycling and everything else. Which, when it rains, you can enjoy and watch. At least it's something. Or buy a trainer and use that. So yeah, that's a variety of things I would do.
You're absolutely right. 2021 was really bad concerning the weather, and Luxembourg has really a long historic cycling experience and history.
Yeah, it does.
Laurianne, Adrian, thanks a lot for joining us today. It was great to have you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting us and having us here.
And see you very soon again for a new episode of our Luxembourg PE&VC stories.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.